Sequels. How do you make them work? The same but different. Yeah, but how do you actually do that? Can they ever be as good as the original? Do they need to exist? How much do you do differently, and how much do you keep the same? These were the questions Universal Studios faced in June of 1998 when they announced that there will be a third Jurassic Park film. The Lost World had been a success. Not as much as the first film, but still a success. The franchise had grossed over $1.5 billion in worldwide box office sales, as well as the theme park ride and the merchandising. For Universal, there was still money in them there hills, and with God as their witness, they were going to make some more of it. The first major question was, would Spielberg be returning? The answer was no, although he would serve as producer. Would David Koepp be returning? Also no. So who would be directing the third Jurassic installment? And who would write it? The first question would be answered by Joe Johnston, who had gotten his start in ILM and was well known for directing the 1995 Jumanji. He actually asked Spielberg if he could direct the first sequel, but Spielberg had taken that one for himself. With him bowing out, the torch naturally passed to Johnston. Spielberg and Crichton were to collaborate on story ideas before a script would be written, and the final film was scheduled to release in mid-2000. Unfortunately, just like John Hammond's original vision for his park in 1993, this did not come to pass. Jurassic Park III ended up going through various scripts and rewrites, starting with Carl Rosenberg and going on to Peter Buckman, and release dates were pushed back to 2001. Both scripts were heavily different, and honestly, it would take a whole other video to dive into them fully. So expect that at some point in the future. Sam Neill was signed on to return as Alan Grant, as was Laura Dern as Ellie Sattler, along with newcomers to the franchise William H. Macy and Tia Leone. As casting and locations were coming together for the shoot, Johnston was still unhappy with the script for the film, despite being mere weeks away from filming. Enter Jurassic Park and Lost World writer David Koepp, who pitched to Johnston the idea of the third film being a rescue mission. Off his recommendation, Universal hired screenwriters Alexander Payne and Jim Taylor to do revisions to Bachman's draft of the script. The script continued to evolve even as shooting began. 4 writers, and a year later than scheduled, Jurassic Park III was released into cinemas with some changes to the newly established Jurassic formula. Instead of the main carnivorous dinosaur of the film being the T-Rex, because everyone loves that, T-Rex! T-Rex! This time, the larger, more crocodilian-snouted Spinosaurus featured on the poster.
So we actually went after a dinosaur that literally could cause an extinction on the island.
Paleontology had also discovered that dinosaurs had feathers, particularly Velociraptor. So that was incorporated too, giving them a bit of a makeover for the third film. All this combined to make a film that would hopefully be the same, but also very different. So how does Jurassic Park 3 fare in comparison to the original and The Lost World? Does it earn its place, or is it a symbol of a studio going too far, rushing production and making an inferior product? And yes, I'm aware of the irony of talking about Jurassic Park 3 going too far when we literally have another 3 films to go and another one on the horizon. Well, let's return to the wild jungles of Isla Sorna and see what Jurassic Park 3 is really made of. As usual, I'll be referring to the final film as well as the Payne, Taylor and Buckman revised script that can be found online, pointing out things that were changed, deleted scenes and other bits of trivia that are relevant as we go, because I'm a nerd and that shit's fun. This is Jurassic Park 3, and we begin, as always, with the story and structure. Immediately off the bat, Joe Johnston sets the mood of the film. The Universal credits play, but we get the thumping water effect of the Rex, ironically. We all know what we've come to see. Once again with the Amblin logo, and we come to the title card. Oh shit! And into the hook. It's been 4 years since the events of The Lost World. The world now knows about the existence of dinosaurs and Isla Sorna. Yes, we're calling it Isla Sorna this time because the characters do too.
Isla Sorna.
Isla Sorna.
Isla Sorna.
Isla Sorna.
Go away, Malcolm, this isn't your film. Isla Sorna is restricted, and the Costa Rican government has been keeping an eye on it to keep the idiots out. They've clearly not been keeping the best eye, as we immediately see an idiot watching them with binoculars and making sure they've passed over before continuing towards the island. This is Enrique, played by Julio Oscar Mecoso and his driver. With them on the boat is Ben Hildebrand and Eric Kirby, played by Mark Haralick and Trevor Morgan. Enrique hooks up an excited Ben and Eric to a winch as Ben tells him to get them as close as they can.
I'm gonna get you close, my friend, but not too close, eh?
You don't want to be eaten!
Don't threaten me with a good time. The boat gets closer to the island and Ben opens a parasail displaying the name of Enrique's company, cleverly named Dinosaur. I'm guessing he was probably found on Craigslist. The parasail rises higher in the air, carrying Ben and Eric with it. Ben pulls out a video camera and starts filming the island, hoping to see some dinosaurs lining up along the coast. Honestly, it looks like they chose a shit part of the island to try it on. They should have tried the beach where the Bowman girl got attacked. Enrique sees some choppy surf and fog up ahead and talks to his driver as the boat enters it. Suspended high above them, Ben and Eric lose sight of the boat until...
Oh!
What was that?
I don't know.
Something has a right go at the boat and the rope as Eric and Ben struggle. The boat re-emerges with no Enrique or driver, just blood.
Sorry for that guy, Enrique.
Malcolm, I swear to God. Anyway, whatever attacked the boat is never revealed in the film, although with the aquatic antics later, it seems to be suggested it was the Spinosaurus. Was it the Spinosaurus? Or was it those Ceradactylus we saw at the end of The Lost World? Are they even real, or just a PTSD fever dream by Kelly? The script does reveal the culprit, but not until the end, so I'll wait until we cover that part to reveal it. Yes, I'm an asshole. The boat is still going and heading for some spiky rocks that won't end well for anyone. Eric and Ben panic again and struggle to detach themselves from the doomed boat.
Here we go!
The boat crashes into the rocks as Eric and Ben sail off into Isla Sorna, getting more bang for their buck than they bargained for. We fade into the first act where we see a Triceratops attacking a Brachiosaur in toy form. Fair enough. The toys are being played with by Charlie, a happy 3-year-old, while Alan Grant, played once again by Sam Neill, corrects him by saying the herbivores really wouldn't fight with each other. God, Alan, your kid is such a dumbass. Ellie Sattler reappears, once again played by Laura Dern, and tells Alan that maybe he's a little young for that while cradling a newborn baby. Ellie's nanny, or assistant, tells her editor is on the line, and we get a Jack Horner name drop for Ellie's new book. Oh, Jack Horner, there's a lot that can be said about you. And I will, soon. For now, it's just nice to see Alan and Ellie in a happy family unit paying off their characterization from the first film, and wait a minute, who's this asshole? This better be the man who has sex with your wife while you film them from a chair. Oh no. You're the one who has sex with his wife. She's married to him. What did you do, Alan? Did you lose your arc from the first film? Did you devolve? Did you watch Alien 3 and think, I'm glad they killed off Hicks and Newt? Oh my god, I couldn't stand that, because that's the vibes you're giving off right now, man. No. This is Mark, Ellie's husband and father of her child, played by Taylor Nichols. Alan and Ellie broke up. Fuck.
This is a herbivore and that's the dinosaur man.
Shut up, you devil spawn. Okay, no, I'm sorry, that's not actually his fault. Alan is clearly visiting and having what is probably an awkward dinner with Mr. and Mrs. Degler. So awkward, in fact, he tries to get better conversation out of the parrot, who patches him.
He used to know me.
Mark works with the State Department.
It's international relations, mostly treaty law, things like that.
Remember that, it's kind of important in the third act. The latest insult to Alan's character arc starts crying, dragging Mark away and giving Alan and Ellie some quality time.
He's a great guy.
Smooth, man. Real smooth. Ellie changes the subject to what Grant is working on, and unsurprisingly, it's still raptors.
My favorite.
Grant immediately brings up the shared trauma they both suffered at the hands of the big one and her goons, and says he's discovered that they were way more smart than they thought.
They could talk to each other.
To a degree we never imagined.
They kinda did that in the first film, but I guess we're taking that to the next level now.
They were smarter than dolphins or whales. They were smarter than primates.
Okay, I'm not the biggest fan of Elon Musk and Donald Trump either, but calling them primates, isn't that a little... Ugh, who am I kidding? That's actually insulting to primates to compare them to those two. Grant prepares to leave as Ellie tells him he can call her for anything, anytime. Apparently, he's not great at that anymore.
You're still the best. I mean that.
The last of my breed.
I guess this is meant to be Grant's arc this time, that somehow he fucked it with Ellie and now he barely sees her. Anyway, he has a fundraiser to get to. Apparently a very boring fundraiser where he just nerds out about raptors causing people to leave out of boredom. Apparently dinosaurs would have been doms over humans if they had survived or something like that. I'm not sure, but it's at the end now, so he's sure to end it on a high.
And that is why we continue to need and ask for your support. Thank you.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Alan. The moderator opens the floor up to questions, which gets a lot more interest than the raptor chat. But Grant knows why.
Does anyone have a question that does not relate to Jurassic Park? or the incident in San Diego, which I did not witness.
Way to kill the buzz, man. Just capitalize on it. Say you were there. No one would know otherwise. There was a goddamn T-Rex running around San Diego. David Koepp even got eaten. You could say you knew him. Oh well, he takes a boring academic question from a student who states the obvious. Namely that once they know how to do it safely, why not just go and observe the dinosaurs? Grant responds by saying that the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park were
Genetically engineered theme park monsters, nothing more and nothing less.
maybe, but you could still learn some stuff, right? They can't have been that far off. You liked them before Rexy tried to eat your face off. Remember that, Alan? Remember Rexy? I wonder what she's doing right now. Another student asks if Grant would ever want to go to Sorna himself to study them, causing Grant to state his motivations.
No force on earth or heaven could get me on that island.
Lol. We transition to an airplane graveyard where mercenary Nash, played by Bruce A. Young, spray paints scary eyes and teeth on a plane and goes back to join another mercenary Cooper, played by John Deal. Bruce and Nashi are playing with their very big and explosive toys, while another seeming mercenary Udesky, played by Michael Jeter, gets a phone call on a satellite phone. He talks vaguely with someone about being ready to go as soon as they get paid and that Nash and Cooper are two of the best men they could find, right as they blow up that big scary plane that isn't moving.
Nothing to worry about, sir. It's gonna be a walk in the park.
I know you're expecting me to make a joke about that line, but I'm actually going to go slightly off topic and say that the 1999 Capcom video game Dino Crisis also featured a character named Cooper.
Not really relevant then, is it?
Well, maybe not right now, but it will be relevant in a few minutes, you little smarmy cunt. Another dig site in the Badlands. Another Velociraptor being excavated. This time, it's Billy Brennan, Grant's PhD student, played by Alessandro Nivola. He's showing college student Cheryl how to excavate them properly.
Rough. Smooth. Rough. Smooth.
He's really showing her. Before he can get a chance to excavate her, Grant shows back up, C-blocking him. None of that shite while you're on shift, pal. Grant gives him the bad news. They only have enough money for 4 weeks.
3. I had to rent some equipment.
I hope that equipment's for use on the skeletons. To be fair, it actually looks like he made a good investment as he uses a 3D printer.
It's a rapid prototyper.
What we now call a 3D printer to make a cast of the resonating chamber of a Velociraptor.
Listen to this.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. It isn't going to change much since they're still fucked in a few weeks. Fortunately, Paul Kirby, played by William H. Macy, arrives.
Paul Kirby, Kirby Enterprises. My card. How you doing, Billy?
In the script, Billy is the one who invited him on site, but that's not in here. Anyway, Paul is loaded and a big fan of Grant's work and wants him to come to dinner with his wife and him that evening. Grant is hesitant, probably thinking it's another cuckold situation before Billy makes a decision for him. Oh great, group stuff. Grant and Billy arrive at the bar later to meet the Kirbys and dine on the inciting incident, where they meet Tia Leone's Amanda Kirby, Paul's wife. As stated, the Kirbys are loaded. They've been everywhere.
We even have 2 seats reserved on the first commercial flight to the moon.
Yeah, sorry guys, but it's been 20 years and we're still not there yet. Come on, Elon. What are you, not as smart as you make yourself out to be? Or are you just focusing on how you step now, you silly goose? The Kirbys are planning something big for their wedding anniversary this year.
I've chartered an airplane to fly us over Isla Sorna, and we'd like you to be our guide.
Obviously, this call to action is met with a refusal. But the Kirbys won't take no for an answer and really want Grant to come with them. Oh.
We could write all kinds of numbers on this check, Dr. Grant. Tell me. What's it gonna take?
Oh. Well, that was the inciting incident and refusal of the call. Like Malcolm in the last film, Grant wants nothing to do with the island or the dinosaurs. But he's also a few weeks away from debasing himself in the alleyway behind this bar for money, so he says yes. For the money. Academia is terribly funded. The plane flies towards Isla Sorna with Grant, Billy, the Kirbys, and the mercenary crew from earlier. And Billy's shitty-looking bag.
This one's lucky.
Billy drops some lore that he went hand gliding in New Zealand and nearly died.
It was this strap alone saved my life. Got hooked on a rock as I was falling.
So Billy knows how to hand glide. Remember that too. Grant is nervous, making bad jokes about bones and shuddering at the turbulence. To be fair, I'm the same. Billy is just grateful to be going along.
You got me into this. And I have no intention of being on my own with these people.
Thinking they won't see anything good, Grant takes a nap while Billy tries to get to know Cooper.
So how do you know the Kirbys?
Through our church.
Do you mean Scientology? A short time later, Grant wakes up finding the plane now deserted. Oh, that's not good. But it gets worse.
Alan! Alan! Wake up. I'm almost there.
This is definitely one of those sillier moments of the franchise, but it's not the most silly. Also, notice how the raptor looks like one of the new ones. Grant hasn't seen these ones yet, so the obvious conclusion is that they're always meant to have looked like this to keep it a bit more scientifically accurate. At least, that's what they planned in 2001. If this was a Lucas gig, we'd probably have gotten a special edition re-release featuring these raptors CG'd over the ones in the first film. They get retconned later, but no time for that, we've reached Isla Sorna. The plane approaches the island as Costa Rican airspace radio Nash and Udasky and tell them to get to fuck. They ignore them and fly straight into the island, over some fields, and then dinosaurs! Woo!
My God, I'd forgotten.
Grant remembers his dinosaur boner from the first film while Billy takes in the sights. The Kirbys frantically scan the scene as well, looking less in wonder and more in panic. Udasky and Cooper make a joke to remind Grant he's supposed to be a tour guide.
I'm sorry, look, everyone, if you look out the left of the plane, you can see a whole herd of brachiosaurs.
There we go. Udasky and Nash don't see anything, which seems strange to Grant while he shows Amanda some horny boys.
We have a landing strip up ahead. You want me to put her down?
This understandably sets off red flags in Grant's head, who starts freaking out, telling them they can't land.
Hold on, I can explain if you listen.
You cannot land on this island!
Grant starts to panic, and Cooper makes him take another nap. You know, getting knocked out like that is really bad for you.
Try not to be unconscious too long, it's super bad for you.
Grant wakes up a short time later, realizing the plane has in fact landed.
I think they're looking for someone.
Grant and Billy exit the plane, which has landed in an old InGen airstrip, while Cooper, Nash, and Udasky set off into the jungle with their big guns. Paul is apologetic about Grant being knocked out, before grassing in Cooper. Amanda, meanwhile, is screaming into a megaphone calling for Eric and Ben from the Hook. The mercenaries are setting up a perimeter, which Grant knows will do jack shit, and tells Paul that Amanda screaming into the jungle on a megaphone is not good for anyone.
What's a bad idea?
Yeah, that makes sense. Grant thinks that sounds bigger than a Rex, as gunshots are heard in the jungle, followed by Udasky and Nash running back to the plane with slightly browner pants than they left with. Grant compassionately asks about Cooper.
Cooper's a professional, he can handle himself!
What about Cooper?
Forget him. Time's up.
Calm down, Joffrey, I'm going somewhere with this. Nash fires up the plane and Udasky locks the door as they prepare to GTFO, abandoning Cooper. The Kirbys are concerned that they're taking off too soon, and we see poor Cooper running through the jungle with a bloody arm. He emerges in front of the plane and desperately yells for them to stop, despite the fact they're rapidly approaching and that's impossible.
No one can stop this plane!
It doesn't matter anyway, as the Spinosaurus emerges from the jungle and snaps him up. Yeah, it didn't end well for that Cooper either, and they both died right at the start, so this may be a nod to the original Dino Crisis, although I can't prove it. But it is cool, and relevant. So ha! Take that, Joffrey, you smarmy little cunt. The plane clips a Spinosaurus and veers drastically off course, crashing into the jungle and ending the first act. Miraculously, no one apart from Cooper is dead. However, the Kirbys are definitely lying to Grant, and now they're stuck on the island. The new world has been crashed into. The second act begins with everyone trying to get their bearings. Udasky tries to mayday, and Nash asks for the satellite phone from Paul. Grant manages to open the door, revealing that they are in fact stuck in a tree.
We haven't landed yet.
Nash isn't having any luck getting through to anyone on the phone, but there's a bigger problem to worry about as the Spinosaur, pissed off about them damaging the merchandise, decides to fuck some shit up. It rips the nose off the plane and dives in after them, clamping down on Nash's leg and dragging him out of the plane. It toys with him for a bit and then drops him to the ground, where he tries to crawl away. Finished with the trolling, the Spino decides to remodel his head. Damn. Eating him surprisingly quickly, it comes back to the plane and gives them a roar, looking a lot like an animatronic. Everyone scrambles to the back of the plane, causing the weight to shift, and they fall to the ground, destroying the back half and turning it into a long tube. The Spino gives it a kick for the lols, sending them rolling along until they hit a tree where it decides to fuck them up some more. Amanda tries to run, but Grant drags her back in as the Spino grabs the plane and makes some creative changes to its structural integrity. While it's distracted, the survivors are able to run clear of the plane and the Spino gives chase. Grant leads them into some heavier tree cover and it gets stuck in between them. Running for their lives, they get a safe distance and catch their breath.
I think we lost him.
It's okay, it's dead.
That's actually pretty funny.
Nobody move a muscle.
Yeah, that figures. The new Rex, known as the Bull, now gives chase as the survivors run back and find that the Spino has caught up with them. Oh shit, it's dino fight time. The Rex and Spino square up to each other as Grant gets caught in the middle. Fortunately, the dinosaurs are too concerned with battering the shit out of each other. The Rex takes the first move, biting Spiny in the neck and dragging his ass. Yes, son, come on, you teach that bitch who's boss. This isn't his franchise, it's yours. He goes for the fin, which doesn't do much, and Spiny gives him a scratch. Oh, you bastard. The Rex sticks the heat into him. Yes, come on, son. Oh, fuck. I bet Rexy would have won that fight. Spiny throws the dead Rex that I'm really hoping isn't Junior to the ground as the group once again run for their lives. Spiny's not interested though, he's got a bigger meal now. There's a funny transition as Grant decks Paul and demands to know what's going on. But before we cover that, let's talk about the sacrilege we just witnessed. So Jack Horner, the main paleontologist advisor to the Jurassic series at the time, has never really liked Tyrannosaurus. He pushed a theory once that Rex was really a scavenger rather than a hunter, and also theorized that they may have travelled in packs. It's never really been widely accepted, so make of that what you will. He also married one of his student lab assistants when he was 65 and she was 19. They divorced a year later. Make of that what you will too. The main point, possible imbalances of power aside, is that Horner has never really liked the Rex and wanted to replace it with Spinosaurus. So having the Spino waste a Rex in the movie is a pretty good way to do that. There's even a deleted shot in the trailer where Spiny bitch slaps the Rex during the fight. The Spinosaurus on show here is also quite inaccurate.
And the Spinosaurus is and was the biggest meat-eating dinosaur that ever lived.
We now know it was mostly pescatarian, living in swamp-like environments and likely never hunted like this on land. A more accurate version of the Spino can be seen in Ark Survival Ascended and the new film Rebirth when it comes out this year. The trailer features some more accurate looking Spinos, which I like, but apparently most of Reddit hates it in favour of the old design, which is funny because I remember people shitting on this one for years when it came out, but now we have new Spinos, so now everybody loves this apparently. Another question posed here in the film is that if InGen abandoned the island right after Hurricane Clarissa, where the hell was Spiny during the events of The Lost World? There actually is an explanation, basically being that the films take place on two different parts of the island, with The Lost World happening on the east side of the island and this one happening on the west. Sorna is friggin' huge. The LEGO Jurassic World game also uses this layout. I'd recommend that as well, as it's quite fun. The Rex also wasn't Junior, but rather just some other Rex that wasn't even fully grown yet. Another game that came out in 1997 called Jurassic Park Trespasser, yes, the one with the boob health tattoo, stated that 7 Rexes were originally bred, and at the time, it was considered canon. It isn't anymore, and there were some retcons after the release of Jurassic World that basically say the Spinosaurus didn't exist at the time of The Lost World and was created after, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So, to clarify, when this film came out, the canon was that Spiny was always there, just on another part of the island. I'll go over the new canon later, but we've got the rest of the film to cover, and I'm already 6 pages through the script, so God knows how long that'll be in runtime.
It's time you did some explaining, Mr. Kirby.
Yes, please. The Kirbys admit that they're actually looking for their son, who went parasailing with Amanda's new boyfriend off the coast of the island.
Paul and I divorced over a year ago.
Neither the Costa Rican or US government will help them, as they consider it a Darwin issue. Grant asks why they dragged him into this, and they say it's because he's been on this island before.
I have never been on this island.
That was Isla Nublar. This is Isla Sorna. Site B.
You mean there are 2 islands with dinosaurs?
All right.
You know what, that's actually a good question, as at this point in the franchise, we didn't know the eventual fate of Isla Nublar. Aside from the deleted scene in The Lost World that suggested it was firebombed, we didn't know there were still dinosaurs kicking around there. Also now I think there's more like 3 hidden islands. Eric has been missing on the island for 8 weeks, leading Grant to write his chances of survival off. He says their best chance of surviving themselves is to salvage what they can from the plane and then head for the coast, but the Kirbys refuse to leave without Eric.
Then you can go and look for him. Or you can stick with us as long as you don't hold us up. Either way, you probably won't get off this island alive.
You cut me deep, Shrek. You cut me real deep just now.
With their expert patching them, the Kirbys consult Udasky on what to do.
Ooh, search for your son. In the direction that they're going.
Back at the crash site, there isn't much to salvage. Billy checks his camera equipment while Udasky finds ruined firearms. The Kirbys brought a change of clothes though, so that's something, and oh.
Oh, sorry.
It's nothing you haven't seen before, Paul.
Having a quiet moment to themselves, they make some small talk. Turns out Paul has lost a lot of weight through learning how to swim. Good for him.
You look good.
So do you.
Man, between this, Billy trying to pick up grad students, and Grant cucking Mark, this movie is really horny. It's definitely the movie and not just me. Billy takes a snap of Spiney's trackway as Grant decides to see if his extremely expensive education has paid off, asking him to identify it. He takes a swing and a miss twice, mentioning baryonyx, which was originally going to be the big bad of the film.
Spinosaurus aegypticus.
I don't remember that on InGen's list.
It's because it wasn't on their list, and that makes you wonder what else they were up to.
Okay, so as I said, previously in 2001, it was hinted that InGen had been breeding more than they disclosed on Isla Sorna before they abandoned it after Hurricane Clarissa. This isn't really followed up on in this film, and now I suppose is a good time to talk about what we actually know is the real creation of the Spinosaurus, or Asset 87. So in the new lore that was developed post-Jurassic World, drawing from Camp Cretaceous and other media reports and websites etc., John Hammond is dead in 2001. He's already sold everything to Simon Masrani, and Jurassic World is in the early stages of development. InGen is pretty much buggered at this point, becoming a glorified security service that we see in Jurassic World. But Masrani, and in particular Henry Wu, reactivate the labs on Isla Sorna and start breeding shit again in prep for Jurassic World. Which means that actually, while all this is going on, there's some scientists somewhere on the island who have no idea that they've crashed. While Wu and Masrani are doing their thing, they get infiltrated by Biosyn. Yeah, remember that company Dogson ran in the first movie that tried to steal the embryos? So Wu, along with a couple of undercover Biosyn agents, create the Spinosaurus and experiment on it for about 8 months before releasing it into the wild on Isla Sorna. They also create the new raptors and every new dinosaur that gets seen in the film. Again, this wasn't canon at the time, but rather was added in or retconned over a decade later after this film was released. At the time, it's just never mentioned why InGen were breeding more than they said they were. But now, with 3 more movies and 2 TV shows, we get a bit more of an explanation. Grant and Billy spy Paul struggling with his backpack strap, hardly the actions of a professional adventurer, and decide to do some gatekeeping.
So, Mr. Kirby, tell me, when you climbed K2, did you base camp at 25 or 30,000 feet?
Oh, so you're a Jurassic Park fan? Name 5 characters from the novels that don't appear in the films. They realise that Kirby is full of shit.
There's no such thing as Kirby Enterprises, is there?
It's Kirby Paint and Tile Plus. The plus stands for bathroom fixtures.
So not only have they been having them on, the career-saving money he promised Grant doesn't exist either. He promises to repay them in other ways.
You ever do a bathroom or a kitchen?
Not quite where I thought his desperation would go. Oh Jesus, what is wrong with me? Interestingly, this whole fake Kirby Enterprises thing is the kind of thing that really could have only existed before the global domination of Google, as nowadays you can just Google it and find out there's no such... Well, would you look at that? Speaking of people not being who they say they are, Udasky isn't a mercenary either.
I never said I was.
Fair enough.
I'm like a booking agent. One of the guys got sick and couldn't come.
Good for him. I hope he's enjoying his weekend. A little side note, in the script it's revealed that, despite lying to Udasky about who they are, they did actually pay him full in advance by mortgaging everything they had. Not completely relevant to moving the plot forward, but I think it's a neat little factoid. Amanda continues yelling for Eric, which angers Grant and causes an argument between her and Paul.
Well, what's the good of hiring an expert if we're not going to use his advice?
Yeah, except Dr. Grant isn't looking for Eric. He's looking for the coast.
If we split up, I'm going with you guys.
Can I come too? Fortunately, they don't have to walk for too long before they come across Ben and Eric's landing site, finding their parasail stuck in a tree. Grant deduces that they probably buggered off ages ago, and they find Eric's life ring along with the camera that Ben was using. It's dead, but Udasky uses a torch to get it working again. Not sure how, because those have completely different battery sources. And oh wait, we can see some wires leading somewhere, so that probably means it's alright. Oh fuck it, this is a series about genetically engineered dinosaurs. I don't really care enough to rail on it. The wires do some magic or something, I don't know. The magical wires allow them to view the home footage they shot the morning they set off, before it cuts to them gliding over Isla Sorna, showing the boat attack. We also see the aftermath of them landing in a tree and Eric getting free before Ben intends to follow, turning the camera off before he does. The footage gives the Kirbys renewed hope in Billy's survival, while Grant thinks more practically about using the parasail.
If we spot a plane, it might be a good way to get attention.
Retrieving it causes the dead and partially eaten Ben to drop straight down onto Amanda, who absolutely shites herself. Finally managing to disentangle from her lover, she bolts into the jungle with Paul going after her. Ben's killer is never revealed, though due to the next scene showing that they're next to the raptor nests, it could have been them jumping up and having some nibbles. The script actually hints that Ben was injured in the landing and died quickly after due to his wounds. Paul catches up to Amanda, consoling his ex-wife over the death of her boyfriend. Amanda doesn't really care when comparing it to Eric being all alone, before she notices where they've run into. Paul calls Grant over, followed by Udasky, who leaves Billy to wrap up the parasail. And we see several mounds of eggs.
Raptor.
That's not good. Billy follows them and spots a mound of eggs, definitely not getting any ideas. Further ahead, Grant realizes Billy isn't with them and goes back, panicking. He finds Billy, not doing anything shady and definitely just photographing the nest. Grant isn't too impressed.
I lose you, it's just me and the damn tourists.
Continuing on, they spot a genetics lab down in the valley and head to it, hoping to find Eric. As they pass, Grant looks into a car that's had its windows done in. I know what you're thinking, but this isn't the worker village from the Lost World. It's meant to be in the script, but it's a completely different InGen facility that's also a raptor breeding ground. That car is facing the wrong way anyway. Entering the foyer, Paul tries to call for Eric, prompting Amanda to stop him this time, before they notice a phone. Yeah, it's dead. What about the geothermal power though? Oh, never mind. Besides, they're being stalked anyway. Paul tries to pay for the vending machine before Billy alphas his way into getting them some snacks. Paul tries to be an alpha as well and nearly breaks his leg. Worth a shot, I guess. Further in, they reach the factory floor, so to speak, with discarded experiments and eggs. Is that a Spino that never made it? Maybe.
This is how you make dinosaurs?
No. This is how you play God.
Good trailer line, but it's time for the midpoint as Amanda spots a tube that has a fully grown velociraptor in it. She looks closer and the eye moves. See, they're smart. Apparently enough to realize what the purpose of those tubes was, but not smart enough to realize it can't fit through the gap between them. They flee deeper into the facility as the new feathered male velociraptor, Quillian to some fans, gives chase. The group run to some holding cages and find a dead end as Quillian corners them. They split into different cages, with Quillian deciding he likes the look of Amanda and Billy, and traps them between the door and the wall, unable to reach them, until he has a big brain moment and starts to climb up. Amanda has her own big brain moment and swings the door back around, temporarily trapping Quillian and giving the group their chance to escape. Quillian starts squawking, drawing Grant's attention.
My God. He's calling for help.
The group flee the compound as Quillian follows and sounds the alarm. Grant and the group plough into a herd of Coryphosaurs and Parasaurs, causing a stampede in what really should be the long grass from the Lost World, but isn't. In the chaos, Billy falls and loses his bag as the raptors give chase. Interestingly, this is the first time in the franchise we've seen the raptors at full speed, albeit briefly. Grant grabs Billy's bag as Udasky falls behind. They reach the tree line and Amanda and Paul scramble up to safety. Udasky keeps running, straight into some velociraptors. Quillian gives him a knife to the back, immobilizing him as his screams attract the attention of the alpha female. Udasky did try to put up more of a fight originally, grabbing a stick to try and fend off the raptors before one slashes his leg. You can actually see the blood from that wound as he's trying to crawl away. Billy hides from a raptor before using the Kirby strategy of climbing higher. Grant doesn't seem to have that logic right now and keeps running with Billy's bag. Amanda, Paul and Billy look out over Udasky, who's definitely had better afternoons.
He's dead.
Oh my God, No, he's not.
Wanting to help the doomed booking agent, Amanda climbs down and slips, attracting the attention of 2 raptors that were lying in wait. Unfortunately, she's too high up for them to bite her face off. They realize they were using Udasky as bait to bring down the others.
They set a trap. They actually set a trap.
To be fair, they've done that before.
Clever girl.
Meanwhile, Grant spies on 2 other raptors from the bushes like a pervert.
What are you saying? What are you looking for?
The raptor calls signal the others, who finish off Udasky with surgical precision. In the script, they absolutely fucked him up, but here it's more of a termination for efficiency. Grant regroups, pressing on.
Surprise, motherfucker!
The raptors surround him but hesitate to finish him off, which Grant can't seem to understand. Before the raptors work out a way to communicate that they want their fucking Waynes back, several gas grenades are thrown from off screen, causing them to scatter.
My eyes, the goggles do nothing!
Eric, cosplaying as the son of Tarzan, runs in and rescues Grant, dragging him through the jungle to an overturned water truck where he's been hiding out. Grant immediately recognizes him and thanks him, telling him his parents are both here looking for him.
That's not good. They don't do so well together.
In the light, he also recognizes Alan.
Your parents, invited me along.
Grant chows down on what I think is tinned beef as Eric gives him a rundown on what they have. Basically jack shit, apart from some chocolate bars. Eric bonds with Grant, flashing his nerd status about reading his book and his hipster status at preferring the first one.
You liked dinosaurs back then.
Well, back then they hadn't tried to eat me yet.
They then bond over their mutual dislike of Malcolm.
Well, that's 2 things that we have in common.
You know, Grant, Malcolm has actually been on both islands before this, so really he's the expert they should have gone with. Of course, he would have said no, and they wouldn't have been able to buy him because he's loaded, so they would have come to you anyway, but yeah. To be fair, he did really fuck up with Rexy in the first film. They also discover that Eric has done some extracurriculars with a Rex and managed to snag its pee.
How'd you get it?
You don't want to know.
He probably just came upon a spoor after it was dropped. However, he does mention that while it scares the smaller dinosaurs away, the Spino is drawn to it. Man, that thing is more an agent of chaos than the damn Giga in Dominion. A slight chittering warns Eric of an impending cameo and he closes the water truck as some compies appear. Aw, compies, you cute little murder machines. Safe in their trees, I guess the raptors buggered off, Billy calls out to Grant. Some new ankylosaurs get a brief shot and lumber off before we come back to Paul and Amanda making awkward small talk. Paul tells her this isn't her fault.
If he'd been with you, he'd be completely safe. You drive 5 miles under the speed limit, Paul. And I've totaled 3 cars in 3 years.
Jesus, how can you even afford your insurance? Ultimately, she blames herself and says she's sorry to Paul for him being there.
I'm not.
Yay, reconnection of our relationship, woo! Where's that damn Rex family? Have them tag team the Spino, it wouldn't stand a chance. I just hope they're very happy wherever they are right now. Dawn breaks, and Eric and Grant leave the water truck in a bid for freedom. The others also climb down from their trees, once they know the coast is clear. Grant spots a boat docked at the bottom of a ravine and decides to make for it with Eric. Billy and the Kirbys plot their next course of action. Amanda wants to look for Eric, but Billy and Paul convince her that he probably headed to the coast too.
He probably knows he stands his best chance by the coast. He figures all the big dinosaurs are in the center of the island, right?
Sure.
Eric and Grant are indeed making for the coast as Eric shows off his new raptor claw and drops an ominous warning about water.
Are you sure? The closer you get to water, the bigger things get.
They are interrupted by a vaguely familiar phone.
That's my dad's satellite phone. Kirby, Peyton, Tile Plus, and Westgate.
Wait a minute though, if that phone is Paul's, then what was Udasky doing with it earlier?
Udasky.
Did Paul give Udasky his phone for some reason? Did Udasky love Paul's jingle so much he got it installed on his identical sat phone? I don't get it. Paul and Amanda hear Eric calling for him and head towards him, and we get a very heartwarming reunion, ironically through some security fences. The Kirbys are all over each other, but Billy and Grant shake hands cause no homo. Billy notices Alan found his incriminating bag.
Want me to carry it?
He's hiding that well. Grant looks for a gap in the fence while Eric explains about hearing the phone.
I loaned it to Nash. He must have had it when he...
Okay, that's also pretty funny. Spiny gives chase, but Alan and Eric find a convenient hole to run through as Spiny roars in frustration. Defeated. Yay, celebration time again. Or not. This time they flee into the building at the top of the cliff and close the door against Spiny. And it has 5 locks, so you can tell it's going to keep him out. That's why it's got 5 locks. Defeated again, Spiny retreats. The Kirbys recover and Billy's guilt gets the better of him. It seems Grant is onto him as he doesn't want to relinquish the bag.
Please give me the bag. It's not safe.
Raptor eggs. Did you steal raptor eggs?
Yes, he did. Very obviously, I might add, and he's been acting shady about it this whole time. How did it take you that long to work out? Did you apply the same slow mentality to Ellie and that's why she's gone?
Now it all makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Oh, you're talking about why the raptors have been chasing you. Right. Billy says he took them to help pay for the dig site, but Grant decides to disown him.
As far as I'm concerned, you're no better than the people that built this place.
And you, sir, are worse than Hitler.
Grant goes to ditch the eggs and realizes they might be the only thing to keep them alive once the raptors inevitably catch them again. Eggs once again sealed, he leads the group down the structure. The whole egg-stealing subplot was originally resolved in the original script by this point. During the raptor attack, Grant would also climb a tree and find himself cornered by raptors, at which point he would notice Billy's bag leaking and discover the eggs. He would give them back to the raptors and then get rescued by Eric, while Udasky served as a meal for the rest. The threat of the eggs would be gone at this point, but the raptors did show up again in a later scene, which I'll cover soon. As a quick aside, you can actually see Grant unzipping Billy's bag as he's running through the forest earlier, leading me to believe this shot was from an alternate version of the scene. Grant leads the group to some catwalks that are built into the crevice wall. He tries to go down some stairs, okay, maybe the bridge instead. It's rickety, so Grant goes on ahead before calling the others over. Amanda gives Eric a reassuring talk before he reminds her he's been surviving on his own for 8 weeks, which Paul gets a kick out of.
Right, we're all together now.
Yay, more reconnection! Amanda sets off to catch up with Grant, who is searching around, suspicious of something. Eric's turn for the bridge next as Alan picks up something spicy and gives it a sniff. The thing that laid the spicy thing lands on the bridge.
Mom?
Grant catches back up to Amanda in time to dramatically reveal that the whole thing is a birdcage, as a pteranodon emerges on the bridge. The pteranodon grabs Eric as everyone piles onto the bridge, disregarding earlier safety concerns. They run off down the catwalk after them. The pteranodon carries Eric away, planning revenge on him for his character in The Sixth Sense. Amanda and Paul charge ahead as Grant spots Billy. Remember how he can hand glide? Well, now it's time for him to make the heroic, character-redeeming end of the second act sacrifice and jumps off to save Eric, who meanwhile is being dropped into a nest of babies as food. He uses a skull, not sure whose, but I have a theory later, and does some platforming to get away but runs into a dead end. Billy reaches him and he jumps onto him, taking one of the babies with them. Meanwhile, Grant, Paul and Amanda get attacked by another pteranodon that breaks its way down onto the catwalk. The other pteranodons chase after Billy and Eric, having a peck at him, and one rips his sail. Grant continues his tradition of booting dinosaurs in the face as Billy tells Eric to let go. The catwalk also collapses, sending all of them into the river. Well, I guess that's just gonna drown. Billy revisits the trauma he suffered in New Zealand and crashes into the cliff wall. The Kirbys spot Eric, who points out Billy, currently being circled by flying bastards. Grant and Paul go back for Billy as Amanda tries to GTFO with a reluctant Eric. Billy unclips himself and lands in the river. Oh good, he's gonna make it. Oh fuck. Ouch. Eric and Amanda reach the entrance to the cage as Billy, realizing he's swarmed, tells Grant and Paul to run. The pteranodons drag and peck a screaming Billy downstream. This movie likes its head turns. Grant and Paul swim under the cage, escaping the pteranodons and climb onto the boat Grant saw earlier. Turns out Amanda didn't close the door properly and it slides open again. As they drift down the river, we see the aviary properly as the mist starts to lift. The second act ends. They've found Eric and a boat, but now they're another man down and in possession of raptor eggs that they definitely don't want. And yes, I know Billy isn't dead, I'll come to that later. Our heroes drift into the third act until Paul finally manages to get the boat going and they drift slightly faster. The mood is dour. Everyone is at their lowest point, especially Grant, who just lost his grad student. Eric attempts to console him, with Grant expressing his regret at calling Billy scum. Grant uses a metaphor about astronomers and astronauts, saying that Billy wanted to be more of an astronaut than an astronomer. He wasn't really a Nazi, he just wanted to get to space, to live. Unlike some other Nazis who also want to get to space. Grant's revelation is interrupted by a scene I bet the Kirbys wish they had experienced straight away as the boat drifts past a plain featuring brachiosaurs, ankylosaurs and some other herbivores grazing, and we get our first "aw, dinos" moment of the film. Even if the CG on the brachiosaurs isn't very good. We transition to night as Paul turns off the boat upon hearing a familiar sound.
Listen.
Alright, it looks like it's time for the final Spiny showdown, and oh no, it's just massive mounds of shite.
That is one big pile of shit.
Very true, and very fresh, but our survivors have no choice and dive into them looking for the phone. They find remains of one of the mercenaries before Amanda pulls the ringing phone free. Fantastic, I wonder who's calling them.
Hello? Hello?
God damn it, even on Isla Sorna, you're not exempt from spam phone calls. That's the least of their worries though, as a Ceratosaurus walks out of the jungle. It looks at them and gives them a sniff, considering and then thinking better of it, deciding it's not worth it. There's a funny line in the script that I actually wish had been included where Paul says he can't help but feel a little offended. A short time and one clean phone later, they have a usable way of communication.
Whatever you do, don't call the U.S. Embassy. They won't do a damn thing.
Given the current US administration, I think that's a good idea, as they'd probably try to capture the dinosaurs again and rename the island Isla Trump or something stupid like that. Paul says they only have enough battery for one call. Man, where is Yudaski's magical torch when you need it? Probably inside a raptor causing massive internal damage. Anyway, Eric notices some fish swimming rapidly away from something as Grant tells Paul to power the engine so they can bugger off before whatever it is shows up. Thinking about the best use of his one call, he decides to arrange another threesome.
Hello?
Oh shit, I hate it when their kids wander in. I mean, Charlie answers the phone, prompting Grant to try his best toddler communication to get the phone to Ellie.
It's the dinosaur man!
Okay.
Charlie wanders off in search of Ellie as an ominous spine rises from the water. Now it's time for the Spiny showdown as he rams into the boat and emerges in full glory. Grant and the Kirbys scramble into a cage on the boat as Spiny decides to remove the wheelhouse. Charlie, meanwhile, spots Ellie but can't open the front door as she's a responsible parent. Then his toddler ADHD kicks in and he gets ironically distracted by Barney the dinosaur while Grant and the others fight for their life against a real one. Charlie jumps up and down having fun as Alan and the others are tossed around by Spiny, who goes full Rexy on their boat. Charlie remembers why he's holding the phone and runs to Ellie. Spiny, meanwhile, has ruptured the fuel barrels, sending flammable liquid into the river. He then realizes he can just grab the cage and starts pulling them off the boat. Ellie comes back in, and Charlie hands her the phone, which has obviously disconnected. Grant searches desperately for a weapon, finding only a flare gun as Ellie calls him back. He manages to grab the phone as Spiny submerges them.
Alan, are you on a cell phone? I can't hear you.
The river! Save me!
Wait a minute. You have literal seconds to get an SOS out, and those are the words you choose? The river? Site B? The river? A bit vague, isn't it, dude? You could have just been like, I'm on Isla Sorna, I made a terrible mistake, I'm about to die. You gotta work on your communication skills, man. Fortunately, Site B was relevant enough along with Charlie's dinosaur impression to make Ellie realize where Grant is. That's all dependent on them living long enough to get rescued, which is looking less likely by the minute. Paul manages to escape the cage as Spiny flips it up and tries to grab at them instead. Paul goes into Papa Bear mode to protect his family and swims away, abandoning them. Nah, I'm just kidding. He's actually using his new swimming skills to reach a crane and starts to climb up as Spiny gives Amanda some new cosmetic features on her midriff. Paul reaches the top and shouts out to Spiny, who turns to him. It's okay, Paul. You can shite yourself here. No one will know, and it might even act as protection. Spiny squares up to him as Grant, Amanda, and Eric escape the cage. Spiny batters the crane, causing Paul to fall and look like a nice appetizer. Grant dives back down and finds the flare gun. Paul looks fucked as Grant fires the flare straight into Spiny, causing it to rebound into the river, igniting the fuel and setting that bastard on fire. Spiny tries to battle the blaze by roaring at it as Paul falls into the river along with the crane. Oh fuck, that's him dead too now. Spiny decides this shit just isn't worth it and fucks off, slightly crispier than when he started. Grant, Amanda and Eric regroup on the shore, now mourning the loss of Paul.
Oh, you're a jerk! You can't leave me like that!
I'm not going anywhere!
Psych, he's not really dead, and his family embrace him after his heroic efforts. The showdown with Spinosaurus went a bit different in the script. He still attacks the boat, but instead of setting him slightly on fire, Grant gets the idea to use the raptor resonating chamber to somehow summon the raptors, who show up and swarm him. There's a bit of a fight, but the raptors absolutely annihilate him and bring him down, having a midnight feast. It's a cool idea, but it doesn't make much sense how the raptors hear the resonating chamber when they're miles away and already have the eggs back. I assume this reasoning is why it was changed. There's an homage to it in Jurassic World Evolution 2, but that's not canon as it shows back up in Camp Cretaceous after the events of Jurassic World. One climax down and we still have another to go, but first, some Kirby family history. Yay. Recovering in the dawn light, Paul reminisces about a time he caused massive vehicular damage while fishing.
I miss fishing.
Yeah, they're gonna fuck again after this. The scene in the script makes the double meaning of Paul and Amanda reconnecting more obvious, and I actually prefer it. Here, all it does is offer some breathing space between the Spinal climax and the upcoming Raptor one, but it doesn't advance the plot. We don't even get the payoff of the Kirbys explicitly getting back together later either. I think this is one of those victims of the chopping and changing between drafts while shooting that, in the end, hurts the film more than helps it. We do need some breathing room, sure, I just wish there was more to it. Grant keeps him on track as Eric asks who he called. He drops some Arc-ish lore about Ellie being the one person he could always depend on, but he never told her.
You should.
Listen son, you're surprisingly chipper from someone who should be suffering from massive survivor's guilt after having 2 people die trying to save you. They stop as they hear the fabled coastline and run to reach it. But it's time for climax number 2 as the raptors finally track them down and surround them.
They want the eggs. Otherwise we'd be dead already.
Yeah, fair enough. The alpha female squares up to Amanda.
She thinks you stole the eggs.
Not really sure how you know that, but I guess it's possible as an alpha female she thinks humans operate the same way. I don't know. Paul tries to be heroic again.
Get behind me.
The alpha female invades Amanda's personal space before making her demands. Amanda tries to play along, asking for the eggs. Grant opens the bag and Quillian and the others go absolutely mental. He passes her the eggs and notices the resonating chamber still in the bag. As Amanda hands back the eggs, we get that scene of Grant using it I just discussed in the script repurposed. Now using the resonating chamber in front of the raptors to confuse them? I'm really not sure what he's doing here other than pissing them off. Was his plan to try and communicate and say they're sorry?
No. Call for help.
But why? You're right in front of them. They know it's you. Quillian goes to kill them before the alpha calls him off, hearing the distant sounds of the film's ending. She tells the others to run as she and Quillian grab the eggs, giving her group some serious side-eye in the process. They wonder why they're still alive before realizing that sound is an approaching helicopter. They run onto the beach to find a single man with a megaphone.
Dr. Alec Grant?
That's a very bad idea!
A whole bunch of amphibious landing craft emerge onto the beach, unloading a squad of Marines.
Wow. You have to thank her now. She's at the Navy and the Marines.
Aren't they the same branch of the military? I'm a civvy, but I'm sure the Marines are part of the Navy. Anyway, Mark's big dick saved them and they walk towards the helicopter. And his dick didn't just save them either. Yay, Billy's still alive! His sacrifice now isn't a sacrifice, woo! He was actually meant to have died in the script, but Alessandro Nivola convinced Joe Johnston to keep him alive, so now we have him and Grant reconnecting.
I rescued your hand.
Dr. Grant, we need to go now.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the important thing.
My god, you are terrible with people. As our group prepare to leave, I want to take a quick detour and talk about the original ending in the script. Obviously, with the Raptor Egg subplot already resolved and them tag-teaming the Spino, there was no final Raptor climax with them getting the eggs back. For the record, I think the ending they shot works better, but I digress. In the original ending, Grant spots the dinosaur speedboat wreckage as he and Eric are talking about Ellie. He sends Eric back to his parents as he goes to investigate. On the horizon, Eric and the Kirbys spot two helicopters approaching, realizing they're about to be rescued. Paul and Amanda even kiss in happiness, as Grant realizes they're not safe yet and also deduces the real culprit behind the speedboat attack. As he tries to warn the others, 20 pteranodons erupt from the forest and attack. Remember how I mentioned the skull in the aviary? Well, I think it's meant to be either Enrique or his driver. Or perhaps just a fisherman who got too close to the island and never returned. The first helicopter is brought down by the pteranodons and the second pilot panics, flying off with the Kirbys but leaving Grant behind. There's a neat sequence here where Grant grabs the ladder and tries to climb up with a pteranodon trying to grab him. He manages to get on board and tries to cut the ladder with Eric's raptor claw, eventually goading the pteranodon to bite the rope and detach the ladder itself, after which point it flies back to the island. One of the pteranodons also got caught in the rotors of the first helicopter and beheaded too, which would have been pretty cool. Obviously, the ending was changed to the raptor climax and we don't get the pteranodon attack, but it does reveal that it was meant to have been the pteranodons that attacked the boat in the opening. Unfortunately, this doesn't make sense as we see that the aviary gate was locked before they used it to escape, so all of the pteranodons were still confined at this point, so it can't have been them in this version, leading me to believe that it was meant to be the Spinosaurus. The Lost World was originally meant to have a pteranodon finale as well, but oh well. Oh, and Billy was still dead. Back to the actual ending of the film, and we do get a slight version of this as several pteranodons fly away from the island in the epilogue, but instead of attacking, they just keep going past them. Grant suspects they're looking for new nesting grounds.
I dare them to nest in Enid, Oklahoma.
Oh, what the fuck are you gonna do, Amanda? Shout at them through a megaphone to fuck off? Paul and Amanda give each other a lingering look that I'm 100% convinced was meant to lead to a kiss, especially with Eric's gleeful expression, but it gets cut. Instead, we get Paul's...
Let's go home.
Well, I guess there's nothing like rescuing your kid from a dinosaur-infested island and getting 3 people killed to repair your marriage. Grant puts his hat back on as the music swells and they fly back to civilization, along with the pteranodons, who fly off into the clouds, presumably to cause an airline disaster before Hoskins recaptures them. So that's the story structure and synopsis for Jurassic Park III, plus a few differences from the script I was able to find. The hook, dino soaring into the rocks. The inciting incident, Paul and Amanda's indecent proposal. The first act turning point, pissing off the Spino and the plane crash. The midpoint, the raptor attack and finding Eric. The second act turning point, aviary antics and Billy's fake-rifice. And the climax is... the Spino and then the raptors. A very messy 3 acts stitched together from various drafts. Now, let's look at the rest. While The Lost World juggled family, nature, and capitalism, JP3 simplifies things and focuses just on family and relationships, mainly the Kirbys, but also the Raptors and, to an incredibly lesser extent, Grant and Ellie. The main family focus is the Kirbys, beginning as a broken family bickering and angry at each other, coming together in search for their son, and eventually reconciling as a family. The Raptors as well show that they have a strong family and bonding instincts, chasing the group all the way from the genetics facility to the coast to get their eggs back. I kind of wish we'd gotten some shots of the Raptors tracking them through the jungle later in the film, but alas, this is what we got. I'm not sure if there's also meant to be some sort of mother theme as well, with the Alpha Raptor squaring up to Amanda and getting the eggs back from her. There might be, but I also think that's probably just got lost through various drafts. As mentioned, the theme of family and relationships also extends to Grant. He and Ellie are separated, and from the last draft of the script, it's clear there's meant to be some realization for Grant that he screwed up and he needs to do better. But again, it gets lost in this along with most of Grant's arc. I'll cover that more soon. Or, like, right now. Yes, this theme section is pretty short, but I'm literally working with what the film gives me here. So Sam Neill returns to reprise his role of Alan Grant in this film as our protagonist. As we meet him, he's definitely taken a few steps back since the events of the first film. He's gone from, yeah, I've bonded with these kids and I think I could have some, to the dinosaur man, while the love of his life has kids with someone else. He's struggling financially, probably because he's not getting bankrolled by Hammond anymore, but also, as gets pointed out in his lecture, the world knows about dinosaurs being cloned now. Yeah, they're not 100% accurate, but they're still something, so no one is really interested in paleontology at this point, and rather want to talk about InGen's genetic creations. In Jurassic Park, he was the hero as well as the everyman. Here, he's still the hero. He leads the Kirbys through Isla Sorna, but he's also the mentor, the sage. He's the dinosaur expert they trick into coming with them to the island. He's a direct mentor to Billy, and also becomes a mentor to Eric as they bond once he finds them. As mentioned, he's in dire straits. His life is a mess, and it's that financial desperation that makes him accept the offer of a flyover of Isla Sorna. Once they crash after pissing off Spiny, his goals become getting off the island alive, not even really bothered about the Kirbys or their manipulations, but rather focusing on his and Billy's survival.
Or you can stick with us as long as you don't hold us up. Either way, you probably won't get off this island alive.
So as with the first film, and most of the films in this franchise to be fair, his want is survival. Obviously, that's a need as well. But what does he actually need in order to grow as a person? For his arc, he needs to realise how he screwed up with Ellie and make amends.
She was the one person I could always count on. I owe her a lot. Well, I don't think I ever told her that.
We don't really get a resolution to this, outside of his exultation at Ellie and Mark's rescue at the end.
God bless you, Ellie.
There's also an arc present in taking InGen and Hammond's creations more seriously as dinosaurs that can be studied. He writes them off earlier in the film as
genetically engineered theme park monsters.
But once there, he can't help himself and studies the raptors while he's hidden, testing his theories on their communication.
What are you saying?
It isn't really resolved in the film. The best we get is his theories on raptors' intelligence being proven true, but there's no resolution given to his claim of them being unworthy of study. There was in the script. As they fly away, the Kirbys ponder on the fate of the ecosystem of the island. Eric says he'd like to come back someday, and Grant says he does too. It's a shame his arc and characterization become a victim of multiple script rewrites while shooting, and it feels like it got lost in between the drafts. Ellie doesn't really get an arc in this one again. Not that she really needs one, but where her character was an ally to Grant in the original and involved in the adventure, here she feels relegated to a backseat ally, and a mother, in the literal sense, but also in the archetypal. Mother archetypes are nurturing to the hero, usually giving them a safe place to return to in between battles. She doesn't offer that to Grant, but she does reach out to him, offering advice, nurture, and ultimately hope that things can get better.
So you can call me. Anything, anytime. You're still the best. I mean that.
It'll take another 3 films before we see the culmination of this relationship, even if it is a bit naff, awkward, and forced. But we'll get to that another time. It's a shame to see such a great ass-kicking heroine like Ellie Sattler relegated to just a few scenes off of the island in this one. But hey, for some reason, that's what they decided to do. While on the topic of Ellie, Mark, despite being in one scene, fulfills the ruler archetype. It might be Ellie that Grant cryptically calls, but it's Mark's government contracts that get them rescued at the end.
It's international relations, mostly treaty law, things like that.
He's the one who was able to get the Navy to rescue them.
And Marines.
Go back to school, Eric. Despite being the new guy in Ellie's life, he's the one who saves them in the end. Billy is the rebel, not an antagonist. He just does some shady things to rebel against the system. Funding is so bad for the paleontological community that he thinks stealing and selling raptor eggs will help provide for them, which they probably would, but the plan goes south straight away. His motivations align with Grant, but more extreme. When Grant rebuffs Paul on their first meeting, it's Billy that agrees to it. He's also just desperate to see some dinosaurs, and that becomes apparent when he gets his own holy shit dinos moment in the flyover. Grant sums him up quite well with his astronomers versus astronauts analogy. It's not enough for Billy to just study the bones and hit on other grad students. He wants to see them, to study them, to touch them. He wants to go into space. That motivation leads to his moment of madness in taking the eggs, which causes the raptor pursuit. You might think he's responsible for Udesky's death, but in his defense, the whole group walked right into raptor territory and they would have chased him anyway. If anything, Billy taking the eggs actually might have gotten them out alive, as otherwise the raptors would have just killed them all right away. He looks up to Grant and is devastated when Grant disowns him, giving him longing, sorrowful looks. Once Eric is grabbed by the pteranodons, he uses his experience in parasailing to rescue him, most likely knowing his odds of survival, but he's also a pariah to Grant at this point. His sacrifice would have had more impact if he had actually died like in the script, and the film already has another fake death moment. But I don't hate that he lived, I just think it would have been more impactful. But it gives a bit more of a lighter ending, as no one from the designated cannon fodder actually dies. And he rescues Grant's hat, so there's that. The Kirbys are shapeshifters, but also not antagonists. They deceive Grant into joining them on the island because they're desperate. They've exhausted all the usual channels trying to rescue Eric and take matters into their own hands by hiring mercenaries. They're not experts or mercenaries themselves, they're just store owners and incredibly reckless drivers. They're the everyman and every woman. Separated and then divorced prior to the events of the film, they put on the facade of a happy, wealthy couple in order to woo Grant and, once the jig is up, fall back into being bickering exes. But during the search for their son, they reconnect with each other and eventually reconcile. I'm including them together as they're a sort of yin and yang to each other. They both embody the traits of the lover archetype too. The whole quest is done for the love they have for their son. Despite spending most of the film basically as birdingly tag-alongs, they do get their moments in the third act. Paul sacrifices everything to protect his family from the Spinosaurus, and Amanda gets her own moment in the climax with the raptor pack. Oh, Amanda. Of all the characters done a disservice throughout the drafts, aside from Ellie, you're definitely up there. In a recent poll of hated characters in the series on Reddit, Amanda was one of the top. Yes, she's looking for her son and desperate, but so is Paul. While he's a bit of a hapless, wet blanket at times, Amanda gets reduced to a shrieking, screaming mess. It's fair to say she doesn't pass the Bechdel test. Téa Leoni does her best with the role, but you can only do so much when your character is constantly being rewritten. At least they get a happy ending and an arc of coming back together as a family. Eric, as with all the children so far, is the innocent, literally an orphan on the island. But rather than just being constantly in peril, despite the fact that he isn't just a damsel. He adapts and manages to survive for 8 weeks alone.
Is that all it's been?
A dinosaur nerd who manages to use his wits to survive, probably from reading both Grant and Malcolm's books.
I don't know, I mean, it was kind of preachy.
I will hear no Malcolm bashing, you little shit. He is even smart enough to use Rex Spoor to keep the rest of the dinosaurs out of his hiding spot. Once he's back with his family, he actually gets put in more danger than he was before, getting snatched by the pteranodons. Parents have a way of making us regress, I guess. A bit of a smartass.
Been alone in a water truck for 8 weeks. I think I can manage the next 2 minutes without you.
He's a nice departure from a helpless child, able to contribute and take care of himself. Each child in the series has had a moment to shine. The films try not to have children just be a burden, but I think this works better than Kelly gymnasting a raptor into the afterlife. Udasky doesn't get much to work with, though he gets more than Cooper and Nash. The booking agent mainly serves as the jester with comic relief.
If we split up, I'm going with you guys. As far as I'm concerned, it's the 4 seasons.
And at times, the voice of the audience.
You mean there are 2 islands with dinosaurs?
All right, you stay out of...
Part shapeshifter too, as he isn't really a mercenary.
I never said I was.
Yeah, okay. He does help the Kirbys, offering advice and fixes the camera through magic, bringing a little bit of a caregiver aspect to his character. He does his best, and Michael Jeter brings a certain charm to the role, but ultimately he falls victim to the raptors when he keeps running and doesn't climb a tree to get away. Cooper and Nash are basically cannon fodder. They don't get an arc or much characterization aside from being brutish tough guys who immediately find themselves out of their element with the Spinosaurus and are very quickly killed off. Their performances are good for the time they're given, particularly when they're shitting themselves and running away, going as far as to abandon Cooper within 2 minutes of landing. Guess there's no honor amongst thieves. Or mercenaries.
No one can stop this plane!
I've not mentioned a human antagonist yet, as there isn't one. Yeah, the Kirbys do some shady shit with Grant, but they're not villains. There is an antagonist in this film, and it's the Spinosaurus. Of all the carnivorous dinosaurs in the first 3 films, with the exception of the big one from the original, this is the closest dinosaur we've had to being a straight-up monster. He properly stalks the group through the film relentlessly and lets nothing stand in his way. Why is he so persistent in stalking them though? Well, as with the rest of the film, there were a few motivations in play. An early concept had Udasky, Nash and Cooper killing its baby, which would do it. Instead, the initial confrontation is that they simply invaded its territory, and then clipped it on takeoff, which caused them to crash. You can see some damage to it from the plane in the wide shots. It's not a shadow to anyone, just an incredibly pissed off dinosaur that seems to vow vengeance throughout the film. Of course, now we know its motivation is probably more trauma-based after being experimented on, and it probably just wants to kill all humans on sight on principle. I really liked the fight it had with the raptors in the script, but that would mess up the whole egg subplot. I'm not sure why they decided to keep it alive, maybe thinking that just defeating it in the marketplace of ideas was enough. It's definitely a memorable villain that so far hasn't showed up in any other films. As of recording this, I haven't finished Camp Cretaceous or started Chaos Theory, so I don't know what its eventual fate is, though I'll cover those in the future. As I mentioned earlier though, it's a better villain than the Giga in Dominion. It at least kills some people. In another sort of ironic twist, despite the multiple rewrites and script revisions, I actually think the dialogue in this film is fine. The Lost World got lost in exposition sometimes, whereas here, the exposition feels a lot quicker and tighter. Every film needs exposition, but we don't get the character-setting Tembo-esque speech here, more rather just worried parents who need help. Everyone's dialogue works well and is within their characters and, more importantly, believable. In The Lost World, I mentioned Kelly's dialogue being unnatural for a child, whereas here, Eric's dialogue works a lot better. More like a child, but also a survivor. Even the Kirby family reminiscing scenes work fine in their dialogue, letting us see little quirks in their characters.
Well, not 3. The Buick wasn't really totaled.
I just said it was because I wanted to get the SUV.
As usual, there's the trailer lines.
This is how you make dinosaurs?
No. This is how you play God.
But they work within the context of the characters and the scenes. This may seem like a short dialogue section, but that's to the writer's credit, ultimately. There'll be a lot more to say once we hit the Jurassic World movies.
And I am Claire.
Is that right, I?
If you saw the first 2 Jurassic Parks, you probably thought the dinosaurs couldn't get any more realistic. Well, guess what? You're in for some new nightmares. We're here at the premiere of Jurassic Park III, and the creators of the film tell us that there are some big, new, exciting things.
Jurassic Park III was released on the 20th of July 2001 to mixed reviews. Critics praised the pacing and darker tone, but criticised the similarity and seeming diminishing returns since the first film. Audiences, the real survival of any film, also didn't seem thrilled with the third entry. It did well, grossing $181 million domestically in America, double what its budget was, and closed its worldwide gross at $368 million. Still good, but less than The Lost World and far less than the original Jurassic Park. So why was this? Well, despite Joe Johnston being a fine director, and I'll talk more about him in my personal review, many noted that the Spielberg magic was gone, as was John Williams. While his original themes were still included, the new score for the film was composed by Don Davis, on Williams' recommendation. Davis was mostly known for TV and film scores and had recently done the score for The Matrix, so he's no slouch, and the music is good, it just lacks some of the wonder that John Williams and later Michael Giacchino would bring to the franchise. That's not to say it's a bad score, far from it. Despite Spielberg not returning, Stan Winston Studios did, making an animatronic for the Spinosaurus, the Bull T-Rex, Pteranodons, and the slightly updated Raptors. The last 2 films in the franchise had pushed the limits of what was possible with animatronics, with Rexy struggling through the rain in the first film, to drenching the doe in the waterfall in The Lost World, as well as the rain. Here, it was taken another step further, with the Spinosaurus animatronic being submerged in water for the boat sequence and interacting with it. Winston was a master of his craft and always brought his A-game. Despite this, it was another 14 years until we would get a fabled Jurassic Park IV. The series stagnated after III, in part due to the problems in shooting. William H. Macy was even quoted as saying in one interview, "Who launches a $100 million ship without a rudder?" He did say he was pleased with the footage and later said that he had an enjoyable time making the film. Spielberg himself was busy filming AI at the time, yet there was always an executive producer's chair on set for him, which Macy described as never knowing if it was a threat or a promise. Alessandro Nivola was also frustrated with the film, saying that it was the only part he's had where he couldn't latch onto something character-wise. Joe Johnston himself even thought about quitting the project on multiple occasions due to the stresses of filming without a finished script. Fortunately, in my opinion, he saw the film through to the end. As time has passed, some critical reappraisal of the film has occurred, with critics re-evaluating it and some even saying that it's better than The Lost World. I disagree, and I'll tell you why, but it's a shame that the film was marred by a troubled production and frustration from the cast and crew. As I said, it took another 14 years to get another. For what it's worth, with the passage of time and healing of wounds, many of the cast and crew are happy with how the film came out, and I think they should be. Working in stressful circumstances like this, it's a miracle we even got anything decent. While I was aware of The Lost World a few years before it came out, Jurassic Park III snuck up on me. I didn't know it was even being made until I saw the trailer on British morning show GMTV before going to school. 11-year-old me subsequently lost his mind and went to the cinema after school to ask for tickets before being told by confused staff that it wouldn't be out for several more months. I was living in a town called Falkirk at the time, yes that one, and a notorious UK tabloid, whose name I won't mention, did a free giveaway for tickets to an advanced screening at the local Cineworld, which in my opinion is still the best thing about Falkirk. A friend had scored some and invited me along. I was hyped, having read what I could but knowing less about this than I did about The Lost World. This was in a time before the internet and broadband was widely available to most households. I didn't even have a cell phone at the time, and there was no such thing as smartphones back then. Family life had changed following my parents' divorce and everything was less fun, but god damn it, the third coming of Christ was upon me. The first sign that this was going to be different was when I discovered the runtime was around 90 minutes. Then they killed the T-Rex and I was very shocked, expecting it to feature a lot more in the film. I remember really enjoying it, especially the raptor scenes, and feeling incredibly tense. I thought the first couple of kills, especially Nash's, were very imaginative and pushing the limits of what you could do in a PG film in the UK. This was before the release of the 12A certificate, so PG was still advising kids under 7 to have an adult with them. After the initial elation and hype wore off, and I became a teenager a few years later, I found myself having a love-hate relationship with this film. Some bits were fun, but it was too short, and they killed my favourite dinosaur, the raptors looked shite, and the family stuff annoyed me. I longed for the thrill of the Rex chase and the long grass scene from The Lost World. As with the rest of the world, I've come around on the film in the preceding decades. I still think it's the weakest of the original trilogy, but it does some things fantastically well. While I criticised some of the animatronics in my Lost World review for looking a little stiff in places, overall I feel like there's been a great improvement here. The Spinosaurus, on its introduction, definitely does look like a stiff animatronic, but by god, when that big bastard is submerged in the water, he looks absolutely fucking fantastic and works phenomenally. It's really a credit to Winston and Johnston's direction in this scene. The thing is terrifying and looks and moves realistically. It's brilliant. Not only that, but this film features new ground in the dance between animatronic and CG creatures, particularly with the raptors, whose design I've actually come around on. Shots will include a CG raptor and then pan to a practical one in the same take, and they look great. It's clear the VFX budget went into these moments rather than the river scene with the brachiosaurs. I'd actually go as far as to say that this film features the best animatronics work in the series, at least on par with the first film, while featuring them a lot more. There's a lot more colour to the dinosaurs in this film too, which I don't hate, but I've never thought them as good as the original designs, which is ironic because every dinosaur in the original film, the Dilophosaurus aside, are basically muted browns and greys. But they work. I prefer looking at the original Brachiosaurus design to the one here. I will say that I think the raptors get a lot more to do in this film than The Lost World, and that's good. In The Lost World, the masterpiece of the long grass aside, they were mostly jumping around the place and, like the second book, pretty feral. Here, we get a greater sense of their societal structures and motivations. They chase our group right to the coast to get their eggs back. It gives them the most to do out of the original films. In JP1, they're basically the third act threat and the big one is a borderline antagonist. Here, they're antagonistic, but they're also doing it for their families. While the raptors get more, the Rex is sidelined, as is going to keep happening from here on out. That's still really sad, as the T-Rex, aside from being my favourite dinosaur, was also the star of the franchise, and I think they realised this, retroactively replacing the Spino on the poster now with the classic Rex from the others. #Justice for the Bull. Joe Johnston is a fine director who struggled with this film because he didn't think what he had at the start was good enough, and I respect that. I'm glad he stuck with it because I don't think the film would have been as good as it was without him. He did his best under trying circumstances. I understand why many prefer this to The Lost World. I don't. I think The Lost World is better and deserves that critical re-evaluation. I think the film is fine, but there's another thing I've always thought held it back that The Lost World did better, and that's advance the franchise. In Jurassic Park, everything was kept secret, and then in The Lost World, everything was blown wide open to the world and everyone knew about InGen's cloned dinosaurs. There was potential to go even further with this, but instead, we sort of devolved back into a run-around Isosorna being chased by dinosaurs again. The circumstances and stakes at the end of this film for the island and the dinosaurs are exactly the same as they were at the start. The Jurassic World movies advance the franchise. For better or worse, they move forward. This one doesn't, it just sort of stagnates, much like the franchise did after its release. Nowadays, I don't hate Jurassic Park III, far from it. I actually think it's a fun 90 minutes. It's just not as good as the other two. It's fine, and I'm frankly amazed they managed to make it under the circumstances they did. I'd give Jurassic Park 3 3 stars out of 5, with a dead T-Rex sign of where it all started to go wrong.
Look how they mess with my boy.
So that's my analysis and review of Jurassic Park 3. I realise it's taken almost as long to make the films as it has for me to get these videos out, and now we have Rebirth on the horizon. I am going to try and get videos for the Jurassic World trilogy out before that releases, but at the very least there will be a video on Rebirth before it comes out. I'm also going to be doing some other videos on things in the Jurassic franchise that I want to talk about, so subscribe if you want to be notified about those, and if you liked this, maybe give it a like because that'll help with the channel. And if you didn't like it and think I'm full of Spino shite, then tell me down below why and add to that engagement. Also, just comment if you did like it as well because I like reading everything and I respond when I can. If you want to see more about me or my face, which has been absent because I moved and I don't have a good background, you can find me on Instagram and Blue Sky. You may also find me lurking in the depths of the Jurassic subs on Reddit. As always, I've been Stumo, and remember, if you're ever that desperate for cash that you're considering going to a dinosaur island or stealing some eggs, just make an OnlyFans instead. There's a lot of money in feet pics apparently, even though they give me the fear.
Alan!